What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, we're going to kind of continue our run-through of all of the play-in tournament-type teams in the Western and Eastern Conferences. We've kind of talked about a couple of these teams already, and I've gone through most of them in the West. The one that I have not talked about really is the New Orleans Pelicans, and they are a team that is currently out of the picture right now. They're a couple games back of this play-in tournament, but with only about 10 games left in the season, they have the opportunity to make a run here. And there's still a chance that they can get in. Now, it's kind of unlikely, and it's looking a little bit more unlikely by the day, but there is still a possibility that they end up, jumping ahead of maybe a couple of these teams that are currently in the picture and getting that final spot there. So, kind of wanted to talk about the Pelicans and the chances that they have of making this season matter. So I wanted to take a look at the standings first before I look at any of their upcoming games. I usually look at the schedule first, but this time we're going to take a look at the standings here because I think it's important to, kind of contextualize where they're at and what they need to do coming down the stretch. They're 3 games back of Golden State, 4 games back of San Antonio for those last couple play-in spots. So that's a little bit more of a challenge, right? A couple of days ago, it was like 4 games out or 4.5, and they've been lucky because the Warriors have lost 2 in a row. The Spurs, I believe, lost their last game as well. So that opens the door just a little bit for them to potentially sneak in here. And the other good news for them is they have a few games left against some of the teams that are above them, and we'll get to that. But they're 3 games back of Golden State, like I said, and then just 2.5 ahead of Sacramento. I threw the Kings in there. I don't think the Kings are in the play-in picture by any stretch of the imagination. This team is not very good. But they are just only a few games back of the Pelicans, so I guess there is a chance that New Orleans ends up falling below the Kings. So you're kind of in this range here where you're kind of by yourself in the standings, really. A couple games behind and a couple games ahead or a couple games behind who's on top of you and a couple games ahead of who's below you. So they're kind of in this weird spot. They have, like I said, about 10 games left on their season, and they have the opportunity to make a run. So let's go ahead and take a look at that schedule. So the good news, or I guess you can look at it as bad news, either way, the good news for the Pelicans is they have the opportunity to potentially gain on Golden State. They have 3 games left against the Warriors, which is weird this late in the year that those two teams have not played at all. Not even once, that you play 3 times against a conference opponent this season, and they've got 3 games left. So have not played against Golden State at all this year. This will be the first time these two teams meet. And they have 3 games left against between the two. So we just looked at the standings. They're 3 games back of the Warriors. So that works out, right, for them. If they are able to beat the Warriors in a couple of these games, then they can, really start to move up. If they sweep Golden State here, they put themselves in a really good position to make that final spot, assuming that the Warriors also kind of struggle against their other competition down the stretch, and the Pelicans would have to remain pretty much perfect against everybody else they have to play. So it is still a tall ask, but you can look at that as good news or bad news, because if you even lose one of those games, it becomes a lot harder, and if you lose 2 of them, you're pretty much dead in the water. I think we'll know the playoff fate of the Pelicans by the time this little back-to-back against Golden State is over. But they do have a game at Minnesota, the Timberwolves, who normally that would be an easy win, but Minnesota has won 4 in a row now, and they're kind of clicking with some of their guys healthy, with D'Lo and Cat both playing together. They're actually above 500, so who knows, right? That's not a gimme game, especially with as well as the Wolves have been playing over the past week or so. Like I said, those 2 games against the Warriors, then they have a long road trip here at the Sixers, which is tough, at the Hornets, who may have LaMelo back by then, and that would be, on the road, that's kind of tougher. Back-to-back there at Memphis, which is also tough, and then at Dallas. Those are 2 teams that are above them. They probably won't catch Dallas. I mean, not probably. They definitely won't catch Dallas. And Memphis is still a possibility that they do end up falling out, but they have a soft schedule the rest of the way, so not anything guaranteed there, but they can maybe do themselves a favor with a win over the Grizzlies. But again, that is on the second night of a back-to-back, so tough. One more game at the Warriors there, and then they close out the year against the Lakers. The Lakers could potentially be locked into their position on the last day of the season, who knows? So if the Pelicans are still playing for something, that could be an easier game if the Lakers decide to rest a couple of players. But maybe they'll actually try to use that to get into shape for the playoffs, because as we know, LeBron and AD have both been out for a while. Anthony Davis is back. LeBron hopefully back shortly for them. So we'll see if they want to kind of use that game to work out the kinks and potentially ramp themselves up into playoff mode, or if they'd rather rest people. Knowing LeBron and Anthony Davis, I would assume on the side that they would rest, assuming that they're locked into their seed, of course, but Who knows, right? So, not a super tough schedule. Like I said, the good news for them is that they have a couple of cracks at Golden State pretty soon. But we'll see. Like I said, if they even drop one out of those games, the outlook becomes a lot bleaker because it's kind of a double-edged sword where, yes, you can potentially gain ground on the team that you're trying to run up against, but you could also lose ground very quickly. So those are some big games coming up very soon. And as far as my thoughts on this team and whether or not I think they can make a run here, overall, I have been relatively disappointed in the Pelicans season. Now, they've had players who have put in good individual performances. Of course, Zion, I had kind of been a little critical of him earlier on in the year in terms of looking at his injury history pessimistically, as well as kind of noting that he had not been playing great defense over the first couple of months of this season. Now, since then, he has really ramped it up and been a lot better defensively, I have noticed. He doesn't get blown by as often and seems like he's giving more effort, which is good. And he has not been injured. He's been healthy pretty much all year. He's only missed 5 games from what I can see. And has been ticky-tack stuff, has missed a few games here and there, but for the most part he has been in the lineup every single night, which is great. Obviously that's what you hope for, and so that's very good. Averaging like 27 points, it's kind of ridiculous. Zion he's just killing people out there, man. He'll put you in the front row. He's impossible to guard, and he's so quick with the ball, and it's insane to watch him, really. So Zion Williamson is the guy that we thought he was going to be. He's clearly that guy when he's healthy, and he's been great this year. Brandon Ingram as well has also had a good season. Numbers are very similar to last year. People don't talk about him as much just because it's the Zion show, and Zion's been better than Ingram has this year, but he's also been good. But other than that, Lonzo Ball has been improved this year. You can look at some of the younger guys like Kyra Lewis and Nickeil Alexander-Walker who have played good in their roles. Josh Hart's been out for a while with an injury, but I like him a lot. Other than that, there's not a lot of guys on this roster that you can really point to and say this guy's had a really good year. Eric Bledsoe, Steven Adams have both been not great, to be honest. The team doesn't really feel like it fits. They don't have a ton of shooting, don't have a ton of spacing. It's hard for them to close out games. Defensively, they've been honestly horrible as a team. They have a couple of good individual defenders, but as a team that just doesn't work, and I guess that has to be on coaching, even though I do think Stan Van Gundy is a good overall coach. For whatever reason, he just hasn't meshed with this team. So it's tough to say what the Pelicans should do in order to improve this roster, because on paper, this team should be better than they are. They should be at least 500. They've got a good starting 5. They've got good players on this team. They have 2 all-star level players who are both very young. You have good role players, like I said, in Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. They don't necessarily fit super well on this team, but we've seen them all perform well individually in the past. So I don't know. This is one of the mystery teams in the league for me, where it's kind of like, hey, they should be better than they are, but you're not really sure why. I guess it's just on the defense, but even then their defensive personnel looks like it should be better. So it's just tough to really gauge where this Pelicans team is and where it should be. At this point, it is tough for me to see them making the playoffs. I kind of talked about this the other day when I was talking about this. I think that was in the Spurs video, where I kind of said, the Pels are pretty far behind at this point, and they're going to need a lot of momentum in order to get in. They have a relatively tough schedule down the stretch. Nothing crazy. It's not like they're playing tough teams every night like the Spurs are. But it's just kind of like the teams, specifically Golden State and San Antonio, are the 2 candidates to maybe fall out, and they have built themselves enough of a cushion against New Orleans. The Spurs are just 4 games up, 3.5 games up, and that should be enough to kind of keep the Pels at bay, unless they kind of just win out the rest of their games. And then in the Warriors' case, the fact that there are 3 games left means that the Pelicans really kind of have to sweep them, and even then I think they would still need help. They would need the Warriors to lose a couple of their other games as well, just because I think I was looking at it, the Warriors have 31 losses and the Pels have 35. So they would have to hope to sweep the Warriors and then have Golden State lose at least one of their other games, which I guess is not crazy. But it's tough, man. It's tough to sweep a team with Steph Curry on it, especially a team that knows they have to win those games, win at least one of them, hopefully try for 2. You guys know I'm a Warriors fan, and so obviously I'm hoping that they would be able to beat the Pelicans in that 3-game series there. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But for New Orleans' sake, there's still a chance that they do get in, but they have to sweep Golden State, and they have to have some help. And that's a tall order for anybody to beat Steph Curry in 3 games. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. It's just tough to do that. So, in my opinion, it looks like the Pelicans are going to be that 11th team that are going to be on the outside looking in. But there's still a chance, right? Potentially San Antonio slips down the standings, or maybe they can potentially get the better of Golden State here in this 3-game series upcoming here. So, guess we'll just have to see. But yeah, I think that's about all I have on the New Orleans Pelicans and their playoff hopes. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Pelicans and how their season has gone. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah, with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.